Um, Hello. Um, my name is Daniel Ainoko. I'm a floater engineer. The topic for today, this is going to be talking about how smartphones meet AI. The description is simply saying discover how to turn images into intelligent captions and vice versa using Google's Gemini Vision API, all within a Flutter powered mobile app. So let's bring the AI magic to mobile experiences. Right? I'm just going to give a small breakdown. I would say the trend of AI is really high right now. There's really nobody who doesn't know the capabilities of what AI is. Most of the time, we hear, oh, AI is coming out to replace engineers, software engineers, and developers, right? We hear that AI is coming to replace people. It's coming to take over the jobs. It's coming to simplify this and simplify that, right? And in the minds of some developers, they're actually scared, right? Because they are at the risk of losing their jobs and so many things going up and down. We even have AI generated videos and audios, right? That can be used for different purposes, right? I came up with this topic because I don't really see anyone talking about how AI can be used in your software when it comes to mobile experiences. I'm not talking about just chatting with the AI bots, right? Not just the regular chatting, right? What features can AI pull off for you, right? So it's like what feature can AI take over inside your app? Like what does it replace, right? And that's the whole point of this topic today, right? On the second slide we have a list of guidelines, and the guideline behind this is the first one is the idea behind generative AI. The second one is a brief summary of the history of Google, Gemini, and Flutter, right? And the third is Flutter and Gemini setup process. And the fourth is guidelines on using Gemini. So the first, which is one, the idea behind generative AI. Now, the idea behind generative AI is pretty simple, okay? So it can make it easier to interpret and understand existing content as well as automatically create new content. Developers are exploring ways that generative AI can improve existing workflows, right? This is a short description of what, or you can say the purpose of generative AI as a whole. Okay, generative AI is helpful to everyone, right? And when I say everyone, I would like to tag everyone as creators. One way or the other, we all create something, or we feed on something, right? There's the creator, and then there's the consumer. Those who create content and those who consume those contents, right? So I'd say generative AI is really out there to help content generators or content creators. And I'll give you a little example, right? You can see in this image, I'm just going to full screen it. You can see in this image, I queried Gemini, right? So I queried Gemini, asking Gemini to generate the photo of an image, right? Of the query is simple. So I asked Gemini, what would Gemini AI look like if it became a human and started writing Flutter code on a MacBook Pro? So show me an image, please. And after a few seconds, Gemini generated this image for me of a bot writing Flutter on a MacBook Pro, or on what looks like a MacBook Pro, right? It has its reflections on the screen. If you're quite familiar with Flutter, you would know that the linting that is being used in the image is similar to what we have in Flutter, right? Now, this is technically what generative AI is. You can use AI to generate content for your social media. You can query it, and if your prompt is directed properly, right, it's going to generate exactly what you need, right, and give you the full context of it in that picture with some extra details, like I said, reflections. For a generated image, an image that was generated based on just data training, that is a long way, right? And I pointed out here that this is just within a span of 2 years of public release, right? So Gemini was first introduced to the public around March 2023, and we're currently in May 2025, right? So that's like a 2 years and almost 2 months additional difference, like since the launch date. And we already have these capabilities. We already have we already have these features, we have these capabilities inbuilt to most of the AI models we're going to be using in the coming future, right? I mean, if they brought someone from the past and told them to guess if this picture is fake or real, the truth is that a lot of people would not be able to guess it, right? They will just assume, okay, maybe we humans just built some kind of plastic board and took a picture, and maybe the code on the screen is not actually that clear, so maybe that explains why the Flutter code looks a bit junky and all that, right? So it's just to show how much AI has progressed over the span of just 2 years, right? In just 2 years, we're generating images that look really good, right? You can see the background. It looks like a background of a house that is looks like a background of a house that's like in a garden or in a bush or something like that, right? So this is technically the power of generative AI, and you can use it to technically generate content, right, or simulate content for you. Now I'm going to give a brief summary of Gemini and Flutter, since the whole point is integrating Gemini into your mobile experience, right? So Gemini and Flutter. I'll say a brief history on Flutter for those who don't know is that Flutter is a framework, it's a UI toolkit framework built on top of that by the Google team, right? So it's a UI toolkit framework. You can use it to build cross-platform applications. That's for Android, iOS, Linux, Windows, macOS, Fuchsia, and web, right? So you can use Flutter to build on all these platforms, and it's a framework currently maintained by the Google team, right? And of course, Gemini is also owned by Google, right? So it's not really a surprise when Google decides to create a really good support of their AI for their other products, right? So in this case, Google is attaching the features of Gemini to Flutter, right? So that's technically not a surprise because they would also want to provide all their services for all their products. So of course, the support is going to be there. But initially, Google started out support for Gemini and Flutter with a package called Google Generative AI, right? Google Generative AI package was the way to go when it comes to using Gemini on your mobile application, right? It was the welcome way. I think there was even a video, or there were some videos that from the official Flutter team, right, that referenced using this package, right? Because technically it was worked on by the development team of Google, right? Technically, right? So just recently, on the version 0.4.7, Google deprecated this package, right? Google deprecated the package, right? That they deprecated the package called Google Generative AI and decided to do something else. And I'll explain what that something else in the comment slides. Um, now, now, why did Google discontinue the generative AI package? It's very simple. It was just a replica of efforts on the updated version called Firebase Vertex AI. So I'm just going to open this package up, right? So this is the name of the package, Firebase Vertex AI. Now you may be wondering, Firebase Vertex AI? Yes, Firebase Vertex AI. So a brief summary of Firebase. Firebase is technically like a cloud platform you can use for so many configurations in app analytics, authentication, Crashlytics, technically a whole lot of features, storage, yeah, and the likes. It's like a platform Google provides, right? That does a lot of stuff you want to use in your application, right? So it's like one of their go-to platforms for integrating a lot of things. I think Firebase connects with a lot of platforms, and it's a really top product by Google. So of course, it's something they are really going to be out there pushing. Okay, so the Firebase support for Flutter is also very strong, and Google decided that rather than duplicating their efforts on a separate package, why not move everything to the Firebase package, right? Why not move everything, all the efforts? Why not move every single thing to the Firebase Vertex AI package rather than building two packages that kind of do the same thing at the end of the day? So they decided to deprecate one of the package and move it to the Firebase Vertex AI package. Now, in case you're also wondering, Firebase is also owned by Google, so it's not really a problem at the end of the day. So you may be thinking, did Google deprecate their own package to give it to an external provider? No. Firebase Vertex AI is still owned by Google. Firebase is owned by Google, right? Perfect. So moving on. So this is the new package that Google decided to use on Flutter. They decided it to be the new go-to route when you want to use Gemini or query any of their models on your mobile application, right? So this is the new go-to package. And because it was a replication of effort, they decided to deprecate the previous package, Google Generative AI. Now, we're just going to go quickly the Flutter and Gemini setup process. Before I go over this, I would like to first point out that Gemini is actually quite easy to integrate, right? It's not necessary for you to use only Flutter, but this is a Flutter specific demo. Well, I'll just show a quick guide on how you can use Flutter on your backend for any quick test case. So what you just need to do is come to Google AI Studio. It's a quick Google search. You can just do Google AI Studio on your browser. And when you click on that, if you have not signed in, you can sign in with your Google account, right? You click on Google AI Studio, and then you just need to click on Get API Key, right? Ideally, you have your API key here. I would not want to reveal it, or maybe I can delete the API key later on. But if you take a look at this, right, you can see that we have a CURL we can use to query for Gemini response. So you can see that the content has parts. It has a text part. I believe it also has a data or image part. And the text part says, explain how AI works. Right. So we're going to query this for backend engineers who want to use this model in the application. They can easily follow this route. So we're just going to take this CURL. We're going to edit it to have our package, right? So let me just create a new file that says test.txt, right? I'm just going to close this. I'll paste it here, and the reason I'm pasting it here is so that I can safely replace this dummy data that says Gemini API key. So I'm going to copy my actual API key, right? And I'm going to drop this here. I'm going to replace it with this. And you can see the query says explain how AI works. So with this new query and the new API key, I'm just going to copy this and then come to my terminal. So on the macOS terminal, it could be on your macOS terminal or on your Windows terminal, as far as you have I think Bash installed. So I'm going to paste that here, and I'll just press enter or return key depending on what you're using. So we'll just wait a few moments, and this is the process of the action going on. On macOS, when you see the icon that looks like this, you know you can't close it because an application is currently running, right? So you can see that it's done with the processing, and I'm just going to full screen this terminal so you can have a look. And you can see in the response, it responded with the candidates, content, parts, text, and inside the text you can see the long description of what AI does, right? It has a lot of line breakers. So if you're rendering it on your view, you know that okay, it's rendered pretty well, and it's not just a plain bunch of text that is going to confuse your users at the end of the day, which means you also don't have to start formatting your text every single time, right? So it automatically does the formatting for you, right? And you can see the rule here is saying model. The finish reason is stop. You can see all the other information. So with this, you can just, if you're using Postman or some kind of backend, you can just take in the API URL provided by Gemini and query it according to whatever feature you want. And with that, you can easily integrate Gemini on any other platform. Now back to the Flutter and Firebase Vertex AI setup. So yes, so the setup is pretty straightforward, right? Or not so straightforward, but let me just go through it. So under the Android folder for Android, all we just need to do is come to the Android, the app level, and add your Firebase configurations, which is the Google service.json. I would not want to open this because it contains some private credentials. Under src main, um, Android manifest.xml, you would want to enable internet access. Would also want to enable network states, read media images, and read external storage, right? So these four permissions are kind of necessary for what we want to do. I mean, you can take out the access network state, but I'm just going to leave it here for convenience. But the internet permission, images, and storage is required for what we're going to be doing in the coming demonstration, right? For the build of Gradle, so the first build of Gradle we're going to be covering is the Android build of Gradle, right? You need to have enabled your Kotlin version, so probably one of the latest ones. Add your dependencies, GMS, Google services. Um, that is that for the Android level build of Gradle. For the app or module level build of Gradle, you need to add these plugins to. You need to add the plugin block. You can specify your SDK versions. You can add your dependencies, right? So these are the setups required for Firebase. This is the Firebase implementation dependency, the multi-dex, the Firebase Analytics, Firebase Core, Firebase Messaging. And by default, you want to apply the package. You want to apply this GMS Google Services package you implemented. Good. So that's that on the two Gradle sections. For settings of Gradle, you need to update your. You can see where I put in comments that says important for Firebase. You need to put in your Android application version. You need to put in your Kotlin Android version and all that information, right? So yes, that is that for the Android section. Um, for the iOS section, it's pretty simple for iOS. We just need to add the Google info plist, right, in your runner directory, and also import Firebase in your Swift file, right? So that is the full process. It's not as long as Android, but it's pretty easy to integrate Firebase into your mobile application, be it native or with some framework, right? You can see that in the instance of my Flutter main.dat, the first thing I'm doing is I'm calling Firebase.initialize app, right? I'm calling Firebase.initialize app, and I'm running the app after I've ensured that it's initialized. So I'm going to go all the way to my app, and my app redirects to the home, right? I'm going to run the application. Okay, the application is already running, right? So you can see that my app returns to the home view. So in the home view, this is a quick section of where we have all the code, right? For this particular demonstration, we have an instance of the API key from the env file that we have here. We have a lit final instance of the generative AI model. We have a string that contains the AI reply. We have let me just quickly remove this. Sorry. We have a query text controller, a selected image path, and a loading boolean, right? So in the once the page is initialized, I want to instance that late generative AI model final variable, and you can see that the model I'm specifying here is 2.0 flash 001, right? This is the view. Technically, this is the text form field that I put in the query to the AI, right? And this is the section that allows me to upload images. So this application also allows me to query AIs with images, right? So that is technically what this text field section does, right? For the text button, you can see I'm writing a simple logic to check if the user's query is empty. So if the user's query is empty, just disable the button from having any action. Else, we want to do what we call ready AI model. Ready AI model, I'm setting loading to true, and I'm getting the file that the user uploaded, if there's any file at all. This is the content I'm going to be sending to the to the package, right? You can see the text part and the inline data part, where I put in the text query and also the image query here. And you can see that we have a response that says await model to generate content. So it's an asynchronous it's an asynchronous method, right? And once it's done, I want to get the text, and I want to set state and add the content of AI reply to be whatever the model told me. And if it's null, I just return some kind of dummy message. There's some exceptions here and there that you can look at, right? because this is technically what does the heavy bulking of the code. I also have a text widget here that renders a text that whatever text the AI gives back to us. Below, this is one of the reasons why we needed to add the image picking permissions, right? So this method right here, image picker, it allows us to pick images from different parts of our device, be it the camera or the photos, right? And you can see if it's denied, we throw certain exceptions, and we can pick a file, do some checks to know if the file is null. If it's not null, we can ideally just throw another exception. Yeah, we can throw another exception, and if it's not null, we can just set states, right? So this is technically what happens when you pick an image. You empty the AI query, you clear the text, right? So this is the method technically for I would say from here to here is what picks the image that the AI is going to be queried with, right? You can see a bottom sheet, right? This is a widget, a custom widget that renders as a bottom sheet, right? Sorry. Yeah, it renders as a bottom sheet and it allows you to pick images from different sections, either from a gallery or from your camera. So we're going to test this out. We're going to test this code out. There will be a sample, there will be a link to the code, the repository of the code for anyone who wants to have access to it. So I'm just going to put in a simple query and say, what is my name? And we're just going to click to query the model. So we just need to wait a few seconds. And you can see that it tells me that as a large language model, which is an LLM, I have no way of knowing your name. You haven't told me yet. Good. Now I want to specify an image. I want to attach an image to this model, which means I will do this and I'll just send a query that says, um, please tell me in simple terms what is on the picture. And I'll click to query, and we still have to wait a few seconds again. And you can see it says that the picture shows a room with a TV, a bookshelf, and a cat. The TV is on a cabinet, and the screen displays a black and white checkboard pattern. So there's a window to the left and a rug on the floor. The cat is sitting next to the window. Okay, so the cat is sitting next to the window, and you can see that it gave us a full description of what was in that image. I will show you the image I picked once again so that we can all validate that this is actually what I sent to the AI model. So you can see the cat, the window, the television, and the bookshelf. Perfect. So this is what it looks like to be able to query your AI inside your application, right, and sending information along with it. In this case, when I say information, I mean images. So I'm just going to commit these changes and switch to another branch that has another feature. So feature, the name of this feature, I'll just call this Gemini text query flow updates. Right, so I'm going to go to GitHub now and get the name of the branch that has the other feature we want to implement. So cook with AI. Alright, so the second branch I would want to use is the one that says fit slash imaging slash hyphen AI. So I'm just going to do git fetch origin. Once that's completed, I just do git checkout fit slash, the name is imaging dash AI. Imaging dash AI. And you can see now I'm on a separate branch that has a different set of code, right? So I'm just going to restart the application. Yep. Okay, perfect. So now you can see that this time we don't have an image query. We just have only a text to query. So ideally, any text we put in here, we can use it to query the model to give us a response. Now you can see that this time the instance is actually imaging model, and the model name is imaging 3.0 generates 002, right? It's pretty much the same process as the first. We generate an image, we get the image list, we clear the list, and then we add all the images generated by the AI into our list of bytes base 64 encoded, right? Which is actually a string. And I'm just going to demonstrate this very simply. So I'm just going to say um, a picture of a tree. So we're going to wait for the AI query to be completed. So that is pretty much easy to be able to integrate this on your mobile app, right? Be it okay, yeah. So you can see the generated image of a tree that was being returned to me from the AI. Now, I want to give a little example of how AI can help in your application, right? So it's quite simple. Um, there was an application I worked on in the past. The name of the application is actually Rock Scanner. Rock Scanner, right? But I'm not going to be using the one I built as example. I would use a separate one for example. So this guy's rock identifier, I'm not calling them out at all for any bad thing they did. In fact, I'll say their product is really good. But I just want to make an example. Right, so this guy is now could be using a whole large pool of database. Right. So I'm trying to explain how you can use AI in your mobile app, right? This can have a large pool of data, right, that they are probably doing their queries from and some training of models from scratch. Ideally, if you have Gemini, all you just need to do is put in some kind of image picker that can pick from your phone or gallery, and then you can just send your query along your picture alongside to Gemini, and Gemini is going to tell you exactly what's inside, thereby saving cost of having to maintain different engineers and so many LLMs, just cutting it down to a really low price at the end of the day. So yes, one way that you spend less when using AI the right way, right? So this is pretty much an example of how you can use Gemini in your mobile. So yes, I'll go back to the slides for now. Yes. So we just had the fun part, which is writing code. Okay. So the next part. So ideally, you need to enable pay-as-you-go plan on Firebase, right? You need to make sure you have enabled the pay-as-you-go plan. You also need to enable the Vertex AI in Firebase API, right? So you need to enable that AI. Okay. You need to enable the API, sorry. You also need to specify what kind of data you're going to be using it for. And then you also need to activate the Vertex AI API. So the guidelines on using Gemini, it's very simple. They're just more like a really handful of guidelines, right? That says we should follow the policy for the Gemini app, right? So it says our goal for the Gemini app is to maximally helpful to users while avoiding outputs that could cause real world harm or offense, right? So there are a few policies that they want their users to know about. I'll be reading them out really shortly. um, Dangerous activities, violence and gore, harmful factual inaccuracies, harassment, incitement and discrimination, sexually explicit material. Right. So these are the prohibitions from Gemini. Yeah, this is technically the prohibitions from Gemini. Right. So you use this. You need to make sure you're using the model really carefully, right, before doing anything you do. Okay, if not, you're going to be violating Google's policy, and that could cause in a revoke of your access one way or the other. So now this is the end of the slide, right? I hope you understood one or two things from this session. I hope you understood one or two things, and I'd say I'm looking forward to contact. Right, you can easily reach out to me on LinkedIn or on X. Those are the only accounts I have for now, right? On LinkedIn or on X, right? I'm open to taking any question you have about using Gemini alongside your mobile, specifically Flutter, right? So, yeah, thank you very much, everyone, and have a nice day.